International Sustainable Development Agenda. Many are beginning to see philanthropy as a key financial source that could help close the SDG funding gap that is estimated at 2.5 trillion US dollar up to until 2030. But philanthropy for development is much more than just this particular vision. It's not just about the money. Philanthropy roles also includes pushing unexpected change, searching for local solutions on a small scale, and reaching spaces that neither government nor existing markets occupy, and empowering people to engage in a variety of social issues. For next 40 minutes, we will have the chance to talk with experts that are directly involved on project grants and so on, and to better understand how foundations can contribute to the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And particularly today, we will focus on climate action, on biodiversity, and oceans protection, for example. So let me introduce our guests and stop annoying you with this introduction. And starting from Elena Iachia, Director of Environmental Sector at Cariplo Foundation. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here. Then we are with Linda Manson, Director General at MAVA Foundation. Could you hear me, Linda?
Yes, I hear you fine. Thank you. Hello.
Oh, hi. And Stefan Schurig, Secretary General at Foundation 20.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you for being here. So let's start immediately with our virtual roundtable, our debate, and starting from Elena Iachia. And Cariplo Foundation is a reference point, especially here in Italy, when we talk about sustainability. How have the topics changed during these last years, and what are the priority areas which are focused today?
Thank you, Rudy, for this introduction. Today, yes, I will try to present the activities of Fondazione Cariplo, which is one of the largest bank origin foundations in Italy. It was founded in 1991 and mainly operates in Lombardy and Piedmont, so northwestern Italy, and mainly in 4 sectors: social issues, arts and culture, scientific research, and the environment. And our general mission, I would say, is fostering innovation in social problem management and solution identification, while our specific mission for the environment is more on spreading sustainability culture and behaviors, and also promoting management and innovative management and efficient use of natural resources. But we also are keen on developing and spreading knowledge to orientate private and public decisions. As you said, what is changing in these recent years? For example, of course, we adopted the 2030 agenda as a guideline. And for sure, we are active on several SDGs, such as the one on climate change or life on Earth, or many of them, just to mention some. But in my intervention today, I want to focus on collaboration. That is also SDG 17 on partnership. For us, the word working with is very, very important. And we think it has to become a working method for everybody. During this pandemic, we tend to say nobody saves himself alone. But it's true also for social and environmental issues. So We support municipalities, NGOs, researchers, and other players, fostering and sometimes forcing team working among them. And in this perspective, I would like to mention one example just to make my discourse more concrete. One of the most recent and relevant activities that we carried out in this difficult 2020 related to climate change and the role of cities in this battle, which in my opinion is not less important than the one against COVID-19. At the beginning of March 2020, we launched a call for ideas named Climate Strategy, very simple, through which we intended to select 2 areas, two territories, to provide them with a technical assistance service in order to design a climate transition strategy for their territories. As I mentioned before, the word partnership was essential in this call, as we required the idea to be presented by an alliance of at least 3 players, 1 local authority, 1 park or protected area connected or surrounded the related town, and 1 non-profit organization. This was the minimum partnership. Not easy in this period, coordinating or submitting a proposal which was a bit articulated. We extended, of course, the deadline in order to match the problems of the territories, and at the end received 9 answers from the territories, and among them we selected the city of Brescia, so a medium-large town in Lombardy, and a grouping of 4 small medium towns coordinated by Cesano Maderno in Brianza area. So 2 different kind of partnerships. And the main impacts deriving from climate change identified by the proponents were related to rising temperature and heat waves from one side, or rising frequency and intensity of extreme events such as floods and storms. The 2 proponents we identified also, they identified also some of the possible solutions in the range of adaptation and mitigation measures, such as desealing, forestation, energy efficiency of buildings. But we will provide them with technical support, not only to better define these ideas and each action, but also to implement concretely. In fact, our resources will be used for concrete measures, and we will also help them to find the rest of the money they need through regional, national, or European tools. So this call will also be useful to test a governance model. In fact, we ask the municipality to put in charge a climate transition manager, a high-level key player able to coordinate the activities within the different municipality departments and among the various partners. And also this transition manager will have to be listened to when it comes to difficult decisions, for example, on new constructions or roads, just to make an example. So I want to conclude describing our role of foundation, such as fostering sustainability as a player that helps decision makers and the society to raise the bar and dare to go every day a bit farther in reaching sustainable development goals. So we need to push a bit society in order to reach such important goals in our society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elena, for your speech. You say well. I think that we could choose maybe two words for this 2020: collaboration and adoption. Not only maybe in climate change, but in pandemic too. And I think that foundation have a key role in to work and link together with policymaker uh, to the people, to researcher, and who help maybe the solution to solve these huge and big issues. But now, so I like to move on and uh, talk with Lyndon Manson. I took more than a look at your project at MAVA Foundation and your goals, and I'm quite confident that to say that MAVA is a quite unique example of foundation. It's the first that has a life cycle well defined that will achieve by 2022. Could you tell us why did you choose this policy, and could you tell us more about current grants, for example, and what will happen in 2023, for example?
Thanks, Rudy. It's a great question. It might be helpful if I just give 1 minute of background on the MAVA Foundation, and then I'll answer your questions about why we've decided to close in 2022 and what's going to happen to the whole body of work that we've been funding over all these years. So first, a bit about MAVA. So we are a family philanthropic foundation focused on biodiversity conservation and sustainable economy. And we were founded by Dr. Luc Hoffmann, who was the grandson of the founder of Hoffmann La Roche, today Roche Pharmaceuticals. He was a lifelong passionate conservationist, very hands-on. He was a practitioner as well as a philanthropist. And he set up MAVA as a vehicle for his own passions. So a way for him to support the conservation work of others. In 2010, he took a step back from being involved on a day-to-day basis with MAVA and handed over the presidency to his son, Andre Hoffmann, who leads us today. And Luc passed away 4 years ago at the age of 93. We have a staff of about 20 people, with some sitting here in Switzerland, where I am, in beautiful sunny Switzerland, and some sitting in Senegal, which I understand is also beautiful and sunny today. We have a grants budget of around 75 million euros per year. And we just reached a symbolic milestone that doesn't mean anything, but a symbolic milestone of 1 billion Swiss francs in grant making over our lifetime, which we're not making a big splash about, but we are celebrating internally. And for those of you who don't think in Swiss francs like I do, that's about 900 million euros. So now for the question of why we're closing. The answer is actually very simple. Luc planned it that way. He, as I said a moment ago, he created MAVA as a personal vehicle for his philanthropy. It was very personal for him. And in fact, our name is an acronym of Luc's children's first names. So it was something just very, very personal for him. He never wanted to create a permanent endowed institution that would last beyond him. So we are not endowed. We have an income stream that comes, and that income stream was planned to end and will end in 2022. Now, he did that to allow his heirs and his family the flexibility to pursue their own philanthropic passions and not to be weighted down with the expectation that they all carry on doing what he wanted to do. And I find this quite visionary. People sometimes react strongly to the idea we're closing, but I find it quite visionary because for me, the idea of passion in family philanthropy is key. In the world of funders, family philanthropy can be much more flexible, can be much more fast moving, can take greater risks and experiment, And sometimes when you institutionalize, you can lose those benefits. So I think it's important to maintain the close family connection and close family passion. And we always knew this end date was out there. There was no secret. But we started communicating with a lot of intent in 2015 with the intention of making sure that all of our partners and all of our stakeholders were fully informed and knew what was coming. And I think I can confidently say today that every MAVA partner knows what their pathway with MAVA funding is and the support that they can be getting from us. And the ultimate aim is to exit what I call elegantly, which to me means no surprises in a way that's transparent and very well communicated. So your question, Rudy, is what's going to happen to everything that we've been funding? So with our last 6-year strategy, we designed this strategy with an eye to having the work carry on beyond us, which of course is what every donor wants. No donor wants the work to come to a screeching halt when they, for whatever reason, need to stop funding. So our strategies within our programs were designed by our implementing partners, along with some other experts and along with some other donors. So the selection of the areas we were working necessarily had to be of interest to other donors as well. We didn't want to find ourselves out on a limb, the only people who would fund a certain topic. We wanted to make sure that there was a community of people interested in the topics that we would be working on. So like Elena said, this was a very collaborative process. The partners worked together to define the strategies with transparency over the budget, how it was allocated amongst partners, who was doing what, and how those actions all add together to achieve something concrete by the time we get to 2022. There was another objective to working in this way, not only to achieve some big outcomes by the time we leave, but also to build strong communities of actors around these different thematics. And our hope and our desire is that these communities will be strong enough to continue working together on future phases of similar funding, even when we're not there anymore. There's an African proverb that gets used a lot, but I still love it, and I'm going to use it again, which is that if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. And I really believe this. So we've got our community of partners working together. In a way, it's slower to work this way. Coordinating amongst a number of actors is, of course, a little bit slower than just giving individual grants and having them each head on their way. But I truly believe that we're going to go much farther with it. And that's the feedback that we get from our partners as well. We did a check-in with them on how they felt about the process that we went through. And their feedback was that initially it was a bit heavy. Initially, it could be kind of confusing, but that ultimately they believed this was a way to achieve more together, have greater impact, and ensure the sustainability of the work after we're not here anymore. Will this approach work? Well, we'll find out in time, of course. There are some signs of very strong partnerships that we're very confident will continue past when we're here. Others, maybe not so much. We're helping to shore them up where we can, but we do have to accept they may not all survive. Meanwhile, we're doing our best to make sure that we're securing the future of the work that we've been funding and of the partners who are key to carry out that work. And we try to make the distinction between making sure we're helping to save the partners for their sake alone, but really helping them be strong so that they can focus on the work that needs to be done and carry out the work that is important. And so we put in place a whole program of support called Impact and Sustainability. We put some considerable resources behind it on the order of about 45 million euros. And through that work, we do deep organizational development with key partners, and that helps them evaluate across the board holistically how they're doing, where they want to be in 5 years' time, and where are the gaps and how can we help them get there. We focus on building strong leaders through our much appreciated MAVA Leaders for Nature Academy. We've been investing in building sustainable finance mechanisms to help our partners find alternative funding and to reduce their overall dependence on philanthropy as a source of income. And then the last area is all around fundraising. The number one thing we hear from all of our partners when we ask them what they need is help on fundraising. And so we have met that need in 3 different ways. One is it's so widespread, the need is so universal that we engaged with Acumen Academy to build a MOOC, a massive online open course on fundraising for nonprofits. And this course is free to everyone right now, not just MAVA partners, but anyone in the world who wants to enroll in this course can take it for free. So go have a look at Acumen Academy. We also issued a call for proposals asking them what kind of specific support do you need to be strong in your fundraising going forward. And we gave, again, quite considerable support to individual partners to help them with that. And then the third thing is we really actively engage other donors on behalf of our partners and the thematics that we're working on. Sometimes I feel like I'm turning into a fundraiser, but we're very actively making introductions and trying to associate with the work of other donors and looking for overlaps for places where we can bring things together for a win-win solution in the relationship. I just want to say a couple words about closing. You made a comment about how unusual it is, Rudy. It may not be as unusual as you think. It's a little bit more unusual in Europe, much more common to find in the United States. I have a whole support group of CEOs of foundations that are closing. We actively share information. The challenges, I could spend quite a while talking about the challenges. They're a little bit more obvious. I thought it might be more useful for me to highlight a couple of the benefits of closing, which people may not think about and which weren't entirely clear to us before we launched into this process. There are 3 I want to highlight briefly. One is that as we planned our project work for this last phase, sustainability is built in from the beginning. It's not added on as an afterthought when we come to the end of the work. We start thinking about sustainability from day one. The second benefit is that there's really a strong sense of urgency. And I think that in the past, there was always this sense of, oh, if we don't quite get there with this phase of funding, well, we'll do a new phase of funding and then we'll get there. But there isn't anymore after. This is it. We have a hard stop. There will be no more funding. And it really creates a sense of now is the time and we need to accomplish the maximum of what we can in the time and the resources that we have available. And the last is it really, really makes you focus on what's important. I would say all of the conversations and interventions we have with the board, with our partners at staff level, with other donors have become much more strategic. And I don't want to imply that we weren't strategic before, because I think we were, but there's something that really focuses the mind, knowing you have a limited amount of time and a limited amount of resources to accomplish things by a certain amount of time. And those are some of the things, the real surprises we had in finding out the benefits in our structure that is closing. And just to round things off with my intervention, as we head towards our closing in 2022, our plan is not to fade off into the sunset. We're not gently easing out the plan, rightly or wrongly, and sometimes I worry if this was the right thing, but anyway, our plan is to sprint up until the end and then celebrate big successes with all of our friends and partners, which will include, I'm sure, many of you. And to close, there's another saying that I love by Robert Louis Stevenson, which is, don't judge each day by the harvest that you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. And I think that's a nice nice way to make a relation with what we're doing at MAVA, which is we're trying to plant a lot of seeds that will grow into a big, beautiful forest when we're not here anymore. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Linda. Thank you for this really interesting vision of what a foundation can do. And I think that, yeah, this is a kind of a way to drive the partners along their path, and then at the same time help them to grow up and work alone. And I'm really can't wait to see the end of this project. Absolutely. So now let's move on and with Stefan Schurig, and just have a quick look to Foundation 20. Foundation 20 has a really international scope and is climate oriented. And Stefan, could you tell us something more on these topics that you are working on? And I'd like to discuss with you what did you expect on the next G20 that, if I'm not wrong, is starting today. What is the position of Foundation 20?
Many thanks, Rudy, for the invitation. Many thanks for having me and inviting F20 to join. And thanks to the previous interventions. Just these 3 keywords that I put down in my little notebook here is collaboration, adaptation, and passion. And me personally, I resonate a lot with these 3 sort of descriptions of a certain status of working together, reaching joint goals, setting goals, adapting to things that are happening that you can't influence on really, but also love what you do, actually. That pretty much resonates with me. And it also resonates to a certain extent with the DNA of the Foundation's 20 platform. I just want to share three points. The first one is, what's our point of departure? We are in the year 2020, and the Sustainable Development Goals that you also alluded to already are also called the Agenda 2030. So it's 10 years. So that's why the UN has called this the Decade of Action. And I personally I think a 10-year time zone is actually quite reasonable and quite actionable. It's not somewhere 2100 or 2050 or something, but 10 years is something that you can more or less oversee well, and you can see the different steps. But in the same time, it's also very alarming. 10 years only to implement the Sustainable Development Goals and just go through the goals. It just reads like, well, this is the world how it should be, but we're so far from it. And then you look at it and you say, oh, 10 years. I mean, how can we ever meet these goals in 10 years? And it is alarming because of the science, which is nothing less than information, facts on at which status the world is placed at the moment with regard to climate change and what the transformation needs. And so therefore, that's our point of departure. We have those 10 years, and we really need all hands on deck to get things mobilized in the interest of the SDGs and in the interest of remaining under this dangerous benchmark of 1.5 degrees, as it is put in the Paris Climate Agreement. So this all hands on deck thing is my second point that I want to focus on. It's basically describing that these 2 major journeys, reaching the Sustainable Development Goals and remaining under the 1.5 degrees, is really something that is unprecedented, and given the short time, really a very, very sound and loud call for indeed collaboration, and for everyone now needs to focus on in a way, or at least take a stand. It's not like, as you know, when I started in environmental politics 25 years ago, it was like, so you do environment, well, I do energy, and I do this, and you do environment. This is now really a journey where we all have to embark on, and we really need to collaborate. And doing this in 10 years really means there's no way of just choosing to step aside or escape from, or just thinking that this is not your cup of tea or so. So looking into this, we need the business, we need the mayors, we need the politicians, the legislators, the judges, we need the civil society, we need the financial sector to commit to those milestones leading to the journey until 2030. And the good news is we are, of course, not starting from zero. The world is in a much better shape, I believe, and that might sound surprising, than many of us think, because I think the general attitude is that, oh, it's all, you know, we're all going down the drain. No, we're not. There's a lot of positive things happening already. And this is where we need to build on. We have bold commitments from the finance sector, bold commitments from countries, even countries like China committing to zero emissions, even countries like Korea and Japan. Japan has just declared state of emergency in terms of their climate commitment. This is something that also would have been not possibly thinkable 25 years back. So, and now I come to your key question. That is where our point of departure is for this platform of foundations. It's actually a platform from foundations. So foundations that join this platform are saying, no matter what our business is, no matter what our programs are, we just want to exhibit our support for this journey, and we want to make sure that our political weight is also in that sense being transferred to the, political decision making on the different levels. And the focus, and that's where the 20 comes from. The focus there is on the G20 countries, because, and that's my third point. What is Foundations 20 doing? Actually, we are a group of foundations that focuses on the G20. Because you've got all the different perspectives, global south versus industrialized countries, different faith-backed countries. You've got this in this sort of smaller world that the UN is. You've got only 20 countries, and they are still accounting for 80% of the global emissions and 80% of the GDP. So if we can address the major conflicts in this group, then we can also solve them on the UN level. And then I close. The G20 is just convening now, as you said, this weekend. And the Foundations platform, F20, really wants to make sure that the G20 is in a way held accountable for what they committed to in the Paris Climate Agreement and in the SDGs. And we want them to concrete on what we call really an emergency plan to set the tone for the next 10 years, how countries should react and combine solutions on a pandemic, making us more resilient, implementing the Paris Climate Agreement, and using the SDGs for that as a principle or a guidance. And I leave it there.
Thank you, Stefan. Great. We are perfectly on time, and we have some minutes more before to close this section. So I'd like to have a final question for you all, and a really quickly answer. I was thinking we are everyone based in Europe, the whole Europe, and we are living this huge pandemic moment, and I wonder what will be the role of foundation like yours in pandemic. I mean, don't talk only about funding, about money. Elena? Could you hear me, Helena?
I think you need to unmute, Elena. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was reading a question on the chat. Sorry, so I was distracted by the question, and then there is a question to Mava, I think. So I don't know whether we have to answer to this question from the.
Okay, sorry, I didn't read it.
Okay.
But yeah, as you like, we can do this question to Linda. Linda, could you read it? But I can read it. As you surely know, at the next Convention on Biological Diversity Summit, world leaders plan to agree turning 30% of the Earth into protected areas, by 2030. And this will be disastrous for local and indigenous people, as remembered by Dr. Mordecai Ogada at the European Parliament debate of yesterday morning. There's no protected area in the world that hasn't been created without injustice and violence. Well, would MAVA support this 30% target without human and indigenous right guarantees?
Great question. Thank you for that. I can say just a couple of words. We do support this 30% target. We do believe in the power of protected areas, not by any means as the only answer. It is one of the tools in the toolbox. And when we talk about protected areas, that can only be done by working with the indigenous people there, the local communities, involving them deeply in the process, involved with a deep listening and learning process to hear what their needs are and how to integrate all of those needs into a management plan that can deal with all of it. So yes, we support the 30% target at the CBD COP that's coming up next year. And no, we don't support it if human and indigenous rights are not taken into account.
Can I also maybe just add, because it triggers also a question to us, as we literally just a couple of days launched our new report on the nexus between biodiversity and climate. We think that it is really important to protect certain areas, not only because of the importance for the climate agenda. There is no way of remaining under the 1.5 degrees with just continuing the way how we treat our natural resource. So we really believe this is a very important approach. And I think there are already some good suggestions in terms of how we should be dealing with this concept of nature-based solutions, suggested, for example, by the IUCN or so. And I just wanted to do a little commercial here and say we just launched this report with the World Resource Institute, or an author from the World Resource Institute on that very question of the significance of both, addressing both and linking this to green stimulus packages. And there's also, we also discussed this question of 30% and the huge challenge to not just do, repeat mistakes from the past, but make sure that we really look into those comments that we just heard. And what I understand is that the definition from the IUCN is a good point of departure for looking into the different contribution and the different interest areas.
Great. So time is up. Sorry for the other questions, but maybe you can have some contact via email and write down a few drops to talk with our guest. So thank you very much, Elena, Linda, Stefan. Thank you for being here and give us your interesting project and point of view on the world of foundation. I say hello and say goodbye. Stay safe and hope that we'll see next year or maybe in 2022 in person. Thank you.
I hope so
Thank
too.
you.
Many thanks. And very cool feature of the Milan Green Forum, I have to say. That really looks pretty cool, and looking into the exhibition areas and everything. So congratulations for that one. All the best.
Thank you. Bye.